shootings and tragedies have been in the news over the last 24 hours. Yesterday afternoon, a gunman shot a doctor at a Texas VA hospital before turning the gun on himself. Earlier today in Paris, France, 12 people were killed in an attack on the headquarters of a French satirical magazine that had published some cartoons about Muhammad and the Islamic faith that upset some Islamic radicals. And last night here in Toledo, off of Monroe Street, there was a robbery attempt at Tony's Auto Salon, and the owner of that shop has a CCW permit, pulled out his gun, shot and fired, grazed the guy who ran off before being found a few blocks away. So you can see every time there's a story like this, a shooting at a business in town or at a hospital, it kind of renews the debate over whether or not it would be wise to have a gun policy at hospitals and businesses allowing people with CCW permits to carry a gun onto the work property. Here to talk to us about that with TexasLawShield.com, who have attorneys who represent Second Amendment rights all around the country, is Edwin Walker, gun policy expert. Edwin, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Are we starting to see a shift in the attitudes of some businesses around the country to allow their employees who have CCW permits to carry on site at their workplace?
Well, I believe so. Not just their employees, but patrons as well. I know that you've probably saw a lot in the news last year that a lot of the anti-gun groups were petitioning various department stores and restaurants to not allow any weapons. And there were several major players that actually stood up to these groups and said, look, we're going to obey the law. And if the law says that a person with a license can come in here, then we're not going to use our power as a private property owner to stop that, because obviously the law has made a determination that, in particular, people with licenses are, responsible enough and trustworthy enough, and are do not have a criminal intent, so they should be allowed to carry. The hospital thing is very interesting. It was a VA hospital, which means it was a VA hospital in El Paso, which means that it's federal property and no firearms of any kind are permitted. Federal property does not recognize any state licensing whatsoever. They don't even allow firearms in the parking lot. In fact, in Houston, which is where our principal office is based, the VA police actually have a habit of asking people whether or not they have a gun in their car. And of course, here in Texas, most people have guns in their cars.
If you don't have one, they actually issue you one at the border.
That's correct. But the VA police in Houston, they surreptitiously ask people, knowing that many people will say yes, and then they issue them U.S. District Magistrate Court citations for that. And so the fact that this took place at a VA hospital, something that is not just a gun-free zone, but a heavily monitored gun-free zone, the fact that shooting still occurred shows that no matter how many laws you have or how many signs you put up, that if there is a person who is bent on engaging in an illegal act with a firearm, people who do abide by the law are left completely defenseless.
I think it's a well-known fact that the criminals and the crazies are going to violate the gun-free zone signs and ordinances that could be passed. Do you think that we'll start to see a trend in responsible CCW permit holders defying these rules at workplaces too, and carrying, whether they're supposed to or not, just to know that they are protected and they're available to protect their coworkers if necessary, like the other hospital case from a few months ago?
Well, I don't know if you'll see license holders defying these laws, because obviously license holders are very law-abiding people. And one thing that license holders have a fear of is the fear of losing their license. And so all it would take would be, one license holder to get charged with a possession crime, with a weapons possession crime, not only face a criminal charge, but lose their license. I don't think you're going to find a real trend with regard to that. What you may find are license holders becoming more vocal. License holders seem to be the great one of the great, silent groups. They're like, look, I obey the law. I just want to have my gun and carry it. Just leave me alone. They're not real vocal about things, but this may turn around, and instead of saying, well, I'm just going to defy the law and carry, you may see license holders banding together and lobbying their state legislatures to change the law and take premises off the prohibited premises list.
It's kind of interesting. One of the biggest groups that's becoming more and more vocal about gun rights and Second Amendment rights is from a group of moms, a group of women. I can't remember the name of the group offhand, but Dana Lash from the Blaze Network is a big supporter of that group, which I believe is probably based there in Texas. I can't remember the name of that organization offhand, but it's interesting and encouraging to see this vocalization coming from an unlikely group of Second Amendment supporters.
Well, the thing about it is that I think that traditionally people have thought, at least politicians have thought, that women, being the more fair sex, were not interested in firearms, and if they were interested, they almost were uniformly going to be against the proliferation of guns. And of course, the anti-Second Amendment group that formed last year that Bloomberg funded, Moms Demand Action, they attempted to basically co-opt the status of being moms and saying, oh, look, all moms are in favor of gun control. Well, here in Texas, I guarantee we have just as many female gun owners as we do male gun owners. And in fact, females, you're actually seeing an increase in the consumption of firearms by females.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think that women are becoming more and more independent and wanting to find out how they can best protect themselves if necessary. So I think that we'll see that consumer group base continue to grow.
Well, it's just simply logical. I mean, the old adage is as true now as it was 150 years ago, that God may have created all men, but Colt made them equal.
Edwin Walker from the advocacy group TexasLawShield.com. I appreciate your time, Edwin. We'll talk to you soon, and maybe under better circumstances when we don't have 3 or 4 shooting stories to report.
Well, we'd love to talk to you anytime, and it certainly is. I know you're based in Toledo, and it certainly is good to see a local business owner standing up and refusing to be a victim.
329 here on The Scott Show.